When Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis finally meet, it won't just be another fight. It'll be a statement. For Jake Paul, it's the final chance to prove that hard work can close the gap between celebrity and champion. For Tank Davis, it's about defending the legacy of real fighters who bled for this sport. No matter who wins, the moment these two step through those ropes, boxing changes. Because love him or hate him, Jake Paul brought millions of new eyes back to the ring. And because of fighters like Tank Davis, boxing still has its soul, brutal, pure, and unfiltered when hype meets power, when worlds collide. Legends are born. This is Jake Paul vs. Gervonta Tank Davis. And whether it ends in glory, or disaster, the world will be watching. At its core, this fight isn't about belts. It's about belief. Jake Paul believes he can shock the world. Tank Davis believes he can humble it. Analysts break it down like this. Jake has size, reach, and power. But Tank? Tank has timing, experience, and that killer instinct that can't be taught. Every time Jake swings big, Tank slips and counters. Every time Tank feints, Jake freezes. This isn't a YouTube event anymore, it's a battlefield. And the closer fight night gets, the louder the question becomes, because when that first bell rings, fame doesn't matter. Followers don't matter. Only one thing does, the man who refuses to fall. Once the callouts turned serious, training camps began to heat up. Tank Davis, focused, deadly, precise. Every sparring session looked like a demolition job. Every punch sounded like thunder. He wasn't training to entertain. He was training to destroy. Meanwhile, Jake Paul was in Puerto Rico, surrounded by world-class trainers, nutritionists, and former champions. Every day started before sunrise. Sparring 12 rounds against pros. Conditioning drills. No shortcuts. For the first time, even the critics began to admit, Jake was taking this fight seriously. But training isn't just physical, it's psychological. And when you're standing across from a man like Tank Davis, fear becomes your biggest opponent. As Tank's camp released snippets of his training footage, fans noticed something new: speed, composure, and a calmness that only comes from confidence. Tank wasn't angry. He was patient. And that was terrifying. And now, someone from the world of YouTube dares to challenge that legacy. It started with a few words, and exploded into chaos. Jake Paul, never one to stay silent, called out Gervonta Davis on social media. The internet laughed, but Tank didn't. He responded the only way a fighter like him knows how. By promising to end the circus. Within hours, the boxing world was divided. Could Jake Paul actually land a shot against one of boxing's elite? Or was this the beginning of his downfall? Promoters smelled money. Fans demanded answers. And suddenly, the idea of Jake Paul vs. Gervonta Davis didn't sound impossible, it sounded inevitable. Behind the scenes, whispers of negotiations began. Tank's camp wanted strict conditions. Jake's camp wanted pay-per-view rights. Both sides knew, this wasn't just a fight. It was a moment that could redefine the sport. While Jake Paul was chasing views, Tank Davis was chasing survival. Born and raised in Baltimore, his story wasn't built on fame, it was built on pain. Abandoned by the system, raised in the trenches, and molded by the streets. Tank's escape was through 2 fists and a dream. Under the mentorship of Floyd Mayweather, Tank became a symbol of what happens when raw talent meets perfect guidance. A 3-division world champion. A knockout machine with one of the most devastating left hands in boxing today. They call him Tank for a reason. Because once he starts rolling, nobody stops him. From Leo Santa Cruz to Ryan Garcia, every opponent who dared to stand in front of Tank ended up on the canvas. His timing. His precision. His power. Everything about Gervonta Davis screams destruction. But Tank isn't just fighting for belts anymore, he's fighting to protect boxing's pride. To remind the world that this sport isn't a game for entertainers. It's war. But behind the arrogance and the showmanship, there was hunger. Every great story starts with doubt, and Jake Paul's entire career was built on proving people wrong. From YouTube stages to sold-out arenas, Jake did something no influencer had ever done. He brought millions of new eyes to a sport that had been losing its spotlight, but entertainment and respect are two very different things. Knocking out basketball players and MMA strikers was one thing, but stepping into the ring with a real boxer? That's a whole different nightmare. Still, Jake didn't back down. He trained like a man possessed, waking up at dawn, sparring professionals, studying old-school legends. He built his brand not just on skill, but on chaos. Every callout, every insult, every knockout was part of a bigger mission, to be taken seriously in a sport that didn't want him. And that's when the name Gervonta Davis first crossed his radar. In the wild world of modern boxing, two names stand on opposite ends of the spectrum, yet somehow, destiny pulled them toward the same collision course. One, a social media sensation who dared to cross into a sport built on blood, sweat, and legacy. The other, a cold, ruthless finisher raised from the toughest streets of Baltimore, now sitting atop boxing's throne. This isn't just another fight. It's a war between fame and legacy. Between a YouTuber and a world champion. Between Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis. How did we even get here? How did a man once known for internet pranks end up challenging one of the most dangerous knockout artists of this generation? This is the story behind the chaos. A journey through hype, power, and everything that's about to explode when Jake Paul steps into Tank's world. When Jake Paul first laced up a pair of gloves, the boxing world laughed. They called him a clown, a fraud, a kid chasing clicks instead of punches.